Um, yeah, I thought it would be kind of interesting to play with intensity and choice today. And those two things absolutely must, I think you all know, I'm not super fussy on rules. Don't move into pain, I think, is a good rule. Listen to yourself is a good rule. But by and large, I think everything's kind of up for negotiation or up for exploration. But in particular, I think that people in general listen too much. Listen to other people or listen to instruction too much. Take orders too much. Are too obedient. Now I'm not. I mean, we've had all sorts of people like counter narratives about what's going on in our world. I don't mean that. I just mean that at a basic level, when someone is told, do this, lift your left arm or whatever, and you might have like a shoulder injury, and then, but people soldier on like, well, he said lift his left arm, so I'm just going to do this, even though it absolutely, smarts. So today, what I thought instead is, it's going to be about variable intensity, meaning I've got a series of poses that I've linked together that are similar enough that you can move from one to the other, kind of back and forth, and therefore you as the practitioner have total control about when you want, say, the intense portion of the pose to end and to move into a more relaxed state. Does that make sense, what I'm suggesting?
Okay.
Okay. Like, what would an analogy be? Oh, good. This will be fun. I'm going to use my dog as an example. So I could go run with the dog full speed, and we're both like running and sweating and out of breath, and that's intense, right? Or we could stop running and like drop on the ground and like cuddle and play, and that would also be a totally valid experience, but not. It might be intense in a different way, just because I love the dog and vice versa, but not, you know what I mean? Not like, not that it has to, any of it would be like that. But what I was thinking is that, that some poses, they take effort. You're not just passively in a position, you're actually having to exert effort to stay in it. And rather than wait for me to say, we're going to hold this for 3 breaths, or we're going to, be here for 10 minutes, or whatever it is, I'm really going to throw to all of you to decide when you've had enough and when you're going to change the channel into the next pose. Okay? And if that isn't clear at this point, don't worry about it. I'll try to sort it out as we get into it. Okay? Choice number 1 begins with our stillness. If you have something comfortable to sit on, and you may already be there, and so I just grabbed a yoga block, and I'm just gonna sit my hips down on it. Okay. So, for the sitting portion of the class, I'm gonna have you arrive, and then I'm gonna institute, or I'm gonna suggest one of those choices, okay? Very much like what we'll be doing in the asana. So you can absolutely shout out if what I'm saying isn't clear or isn't being understood. I'm not making myself understood. But otherwise, we're going to play with shifting our focus a little bit here as we sit. So eyes can be closed to start, or they can be open. That's not the choice, the capital T, in air quotes choice. But in the same way that you could choose here to lie down, to stand up, to sit on a block, whatever it is, let's just begin by adjusting ourselves and putting ourselves into a position where we're balanced between sort of arousal or awareness, like you're awake, you're with it, but not so with it that you're agitated or, feeling like you need to jump out of your seat. So a balance between wakefulness and relaxation. And beginning by doing absolutely nada, let's non-effort here. So let it all go. And in the letting go, just notice what you don't let go of. You might notice particular body sensations. You might notice errant thoughts or emotions. You may in fact notice any aspect of your internal or external environment. And we're going to start with flexible awareness. What do I mean by flexible awareness? You'll notice I didn't cue the breath, but please breathe. It's encouraged. It's salutary. But what I mean by that is, and even just in saying breath, if you hadn't become aware of it yet, maybe take a moment or two to do that now. Just become aware of the feeling of your breath in your body. And part of that non-efforting is not trying to do the correct, quote unquote yogic or quote unquote correct breath. Just breathing, just being breathed. If that makes sense. So letting go of any sort of feeling about this is the right way or this is the wrong way. Instead, just this is the way. And then I said that we're going to start with flexible awareness. And all that means is, if you're focused on your breath right now, because I should have given you a little nudge in that direction, that's cool. Stay with that for as long as it feels right to do that, or until you notice that you're no longer paying attention to your breath. So there's the flexibility. When you come to, when you wake up to that fact, to that distraction, to that loss of focus, no beating up on yourself, no recriminations, no nothing. Just, it's like, aha, here I am again. And whatever it is you've tuned into, pick it up for a moment. Not physically, but like in your awareness. Totally zone in. So I'm going to just cue to give you an example. In the process of talking you through this, I began to feel a sweat at the back of my right knee. And so rather than, nuts, I'm not focused on my breath anymore, I really tuned in there for a moment, even as I was talking to you, and really felt the feels. And now it's the sound of the air conditioning, the heat register, just off my right ear. You can hear the whoosh of the air. And again, there's a win. I woke up to it. I'm there. Notice it. Get curious about it. Now for you, it's not necessarily the air register or the sweaty knee or the breath. But what I'm going to suggest is, let's take 5. So truly 5 minutes here for you to explore in relative silence. I'll give you a heads up with kind of a minute left. And the one last instruction I'll give is to suggest that, as I said at the outset, there is choice. So if you are totally digging the flexibility, playing with a sort of more elastic awareness, cool, do it. And if it is becoming, it's just not serving you, you're not digging it, then pick a point. Could be the breath, could be the sweaty knee, could be the air register, whatever it is. And focus in a concentrated, narrow way with stable attention. You'll still be distracted, but you just keep coming back to that object. So there's your choice. Shall I be flexible or shall I be narrow? So just another moment. It's funny that silence can allow things to really get a lot slower, a lot calmer, a lot clearer. So just take this final minute before we get moving to just observe. You don't have to be any part of it. You're just kind of holding space for whatever is happening in your experience. Might not say that you're holding space, you are space for whatever's happening. And then just like that, lickety split, let's allow the eyes to open if they were closed. Let me reach for the glasses so that I can see. any questions about any of that before we get rolling into some movement? We're all good? Okay. I've been that, by the way, thank you whoever was, someone in their environment had a car horn that honked. I don't know if was I the only one that heard that?
No, they honk all the time on my end. Did you hear somebody too?
Yeah, I don't know. It came through, so it may have been yours, but it was perfect. It was like just as we were settling in a sound, it's like, I was like, that's exactly those little interruptions. They're perfect. They're exactly that, because we're always bouncing around in our heads and our bodies and everything else. Truthfully, and it's for me when I find it's a very different experience when I'm leading a class versus when I'm practicing on my own. When I'm practicing on my own, it's practice. When I'm leading, I'm constantly having to be vigilant that I'm not lost in thought about what's going to happen next in the class, if that makes sense. Like, in other words, coming out of the meditation to say, okay, so when this is over, then we go to do this and this and this. So anyway, there's always not even necessarily a challenge, but there's always something interesting to pick up. Okay, a few little mobilizers to get us rolling here. Let's take our hands, and again, we can just stay sitting just for the first moment or two here, but again, shift your position in any way that feels right, if feels like you need to. Fingers interlace, turn them out, and then inhale, lift them up, and then press them up. So you're really hiking your shoulders up toward your ears, feeling your shoulder blades come up your back, and then exhale, just release your hands from one another and drop your shoulder blades down. So it's not a big move. And then hands come down. And we'll drop the left hand down to the side. Inhale, right arm comes up and over and bend, and really breathe into the side ribs on the right there. Exhale, come down, right hand makes contact. Inhale, left hand comes up and over, and not collapsing into the shoulder here, really resisting and trying to open up that opposite side. And exhale, and we'll come down. Both hands come together again. Turn the palms, and then sweep wide. I've got a new plant here behind. Try not to sweep it off. Interlace behind, and take the shoulders, your shoulder blades, back in and down. So opening up the chest. And then inhale, both arms rise again. Exhale, hands come down. And then hands can come right down onto the mat, okay, or onto surface around you. I'm going to lose the block here. Okay, I'm actually going to come onto my knees, hands and knees, but certainly you could do this seated as well. Really, all we're looking to do here is to, two things. Let's actually start with our feet, okay? So, depends on the stretch that you feel like you need. If it's the front or the tops of your feet, we can begin by just taking the toes down, and then you can kind of sit like there. Now, if that's too much or you feel crampiness, we can lose that. Tuck your toes, and then sit back toward your heels with your toes. Try to get all 5 toes. It's a little tricky, but try to get them all kind of tucked in. And then we'll reverse that out. Whoops, a little loss of balance.
For what reason could that hurt so much?
Which part of it hurt so much?
The part where I sit on my heels and my toes are bent. Ow.
Is it hurting on the sole of the foot?
No, it's hurting where the toes are. Yeah, I get that. Like
yeah.
Ow, yeah. I don't want to lean back anymore. It just really hurts.
Yeah, so then it's you're here. If you see, so if I, rather than like this, I'm like I'm really taking it into my toes, whereas here, and then you can just kind of ease back any amount.
I do it in like tabletop, just kind of shift my bum back.
Yeah, okay, that's better.
Bingo. Group, see, look at this is great group effort. I love it. All right. And then, so with our ankles and toes and soles of our feet not out of the way, but open up a little bit, hopefully not too unpleasantly. Hands, let's bring them down. And then again here, really how you lean is gonna dictate what you feel. But even before we get into any leaning, your hands are like decks of cards, like really compacted. Open the fingers up and feel like you're almost like cupping your hands. Like, I don't know if that's coming through in the video, but you can see like you can flatten your hand or you can cup it, okay? We want to cup them so that your middle knuckles come up off of the ground a little bit, okay? And then leaning forward only so much as is comfortable, okay? You can roll the eyes of your elbows, the inner elbows, forward, okay? And then fingers come out to the sides. And here we just kind of rock gently side to side. Okay, and then what I'm actually going to suggest is take your right hand, fingers come forward. Take your left hand, fingers come back toward you. Okay, and then you can just sort of shift from side to side, around the horn, meaning just kind of rolling in circles. They won't be too big in all likelihood, that's okay. Just getting into all the sensations. And then let's switch. Left hand comes forward, still cupping. Right hand points back. And playing a little bit. Obviously, what we're doing here, in terms of like the forward and back and the rolling from side to side and kind of in circles, is to put some pressure onto different parts of our wrists, rather than, if we only did one move, then we're only going to be mobile in one move, right? So it's just a way of kind of getting into that. And then let's wake up our spine, and we'll get into our series of choices, okay? Let's inhale and allow the belly to drop and your tail rises, your chin and even your eyes rise. It's cow, and then undulate. Bring your upper back and your lower back out, blow them out to the wall, the ceiling behind you, and then switch. Say 3 more of those. And if this is feeling at all like you don't have enough room to kind of make that move, you can play with this. Move a hand, one arm, one handprint forward. And just take a cycle of breath that way. And notice how that might change, and then you can switch the hands, go the other way. How that can create the feeling of a bit more space underneath. Okay. And then just a little waggle here where you're looking behind towards your feet on one side, behind on the other. And then we'll just sit back a little bit. Okay, so here are are we feeling warmish? Like we've got a little bit of movement in our bodies?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, 3 poses, okay? You can decide, so first pose, I'm gonna just very, very, very briefly demo them so you know what your options are, where we're going, okay? So our starting pose is child's pose, okay? So really with child's pose, we're sitting back toward our ankles, okay? And then folding over our hips. Hands can come down. Hands really can come forward if you want, okay? But think about taking your hip bones back in space towards your heels, okay? So you're there, or you're here, really. And with your child's pose, you can either be in this sort of tight little child's pose like I am, or you can open the knees up and kind of come down in between, okay? So I mean, again, it depends on the person, it depends on the day. That I really want to hesitate and not say like that's the relaxation pose, but presumably there wouldn't be as much intensity there, okay? So, child's pose, and then we come forward onto our forearms, okay? And then from there, we come up into a forearm plank. So you can, a lot of times people bring their hands together, okay, like that. I like to bring them out in front. And what we're doing here is, well, it's planking, okay? And I'm gonna throw some stuff your way in terms of playing with that plank, okay? And then, third and final pose is to allow your body to come down. So my hips, I don't know if that's clear on the video, I'm out of the way there, you can see so forearm plank, hips up, this, hips down, but forearms still on the mat and really getting long in our collarbones, Sphinx pose. Got it? So that's our little sequence. And then from here, we can just kind of roll back to our child's pose. Okay? So let's prepare. Take a big breath. Exhale everything out. And then inhale one more breath. As you exhale, come forward into child's pose. Breathing here and really trying to feel the breath into your low back, into the back body. I know we don't have lungs in the low back, but what I mean there is your belly in all likelihood is up against your legs, so there's less space to breathe into there. So think about expanding, and there's going to be a natural expansion through the belly, but expanding through the back of the body. Just taking a few breaths here. You can see, and again, if this would bother you to have your arms up off of the mat, like I'm kind of hanging in space here, but I've actually brought my hands to my low back in order to feel the breath coming in. Option here to take your hands, both hands out to the right, and to really reach, especially with the left hand. And then as you reach and stretch through those left fingers, take your left hip back and away and open up that whole left side of the body, breathing into it. As you exhale, let's release out of that. Come to the other side. Reach, 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 especially with the right hand to the left. And then take your right hip away from the hand. Good. And then come back to center. Maybe just sweep both hands down the sides of your body. Palms come to the ceiling. Or you can even, if it's accessible, you might reach with your hands and just put them onto the soles of your feet. Again, if I'm suggesting anything in any of these poses that doesn't feel safe or super awesome or whatever, please modify. Okay. And then we'll sweep the arms forward and we'll come up to hands and knees. Okay. And here's a little elementary route to our plank, okay? A little warm up for our core. Tuck your toes, so curl your toes under as we were in our warm up, and then simply lift your knees off of the mat. And breathe here. And then you decide when knees come back down. Or if they come down. Maybe they stay up so long that you just float away. But feel the tension in your legs, especially upper legs, hips, low back, arms, everything turning on here, maybe even lifting one set of toes. So there's the toes. And then they come down, maybe lifting the other. Maybe you're already back in your child's pose. So if you're waiting for me to release you, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not playing that game. Okay, come on back down if you haven't already, unless it feels right to stay up there, in which case you're doing that. Come up onto the tips of your fingers and really reach away from the hips. Hips go back away from the fingers. And then come up when you're ready, okay? One forearm goes down, the other forearm goes down. Just check that your elbows are roughly underneath your shoulders. So you're not like way out of alignment, that's gonna be tricky, okay? And then take one set of toes back, take another set of toes back. Feel your midsection, but not just your belly, your hips. Feel everything sort of tighten up. And without moving your body at all, the feeling of dragging your elbows towards your toes and your toes towards your elbows, and if you can hear the shaking in my voice, that's from that engagement. That's it. So when you've had enough of this goodness, then you can drop down gently into your Sphinx. But otherwise, we're here, we're breathing, and we're just noticing what's happening. You might even lift one set of toes. Okay? Or bring a knee up. Or the other side. And the knee up. And then that is it for me, but you might still be in your forearm plank, or you might not. Instead, I've moved to Sphinx. So hips are down, sternum comes forward, crown of your head goes up and also a little bit forward. So what we're not doing is this, cranking the neck back. We're not worried about that. Feeling of opening up through the middle back. How are we doing?
Oh, back in child pose.
Sorry, my dog decided to.
I'm back in child's pose. Back in child's pose.
You're back in child's. Okay, thank you. Okay, and that's a good idea. I'm gonna go back there too. Okay. Next series, 2 poses. Okay? Again, with any of these, they're all suggestions. So if you feel like sitting out, sit out. If you feel like going back to where we were, do that. But what we're gonna do here is move between 2 dogs. Okay? We're gonna go from up dog to down dog and back and forth. And then here's where the choice comes in. I'm gonna cue you with breath to move from one dog, so move from upward dog, okay, on the inhale, to downward dog on the exhale. And we'll simply just go back and forth. Now, a quick little safety tip, okay? 2 things here. One, we're not gonna, obviously with our up dog, we've brought our toes onto the mat like that. We're actually gonna tuck them. So in that tuck position like we were, as if we were in our downward facing dog. Okay, and then when we come forward to up dog, we're gonna stay in that tuck position. So it's a slight modification. Okay, there's our action. And what I'm gonna actually ask you to do, okay, I'm gonna do, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 cycles of that. So know that going in. As long as it's feeling interesting and good, do that. It can be quite invigorating. It can really kind of warm you up quickly. But both of those poses can be wonderful places to relax, okay, to just hang out. So if you want to stop the moving, you can let that kind of flow, that pace that I'm cueing continue, but know that you can be holding your upward dog or even cobra, like let the hips come down over the mat, or using downward dog as a held pose that you breathe in. Got it? Okay, so let's start with, again, in our tabletop. So tucking the toes, knees roughly under our hips, hands under our shoulders, and then just lift the knees again, just a couple of inches, and then curl the toes and come back, downward facing dog, okay? Before moving anything, tone your belly. So really turning the belly on so that we can protect the back as we come forward. We don't want to tweak our low back. And then up dog. Down dog, exhale. Inhale, up, exhale. And this it doesn't have to be as fast as I'm going, it doesn't have to be as slow as I'm going. You listen to your body. Up, down. This can also, if this is too much for your shoulders, I'm just gonna demo this. This could also be dolphin, okay? And then you'll have to kind of come down, Sphinx. Dolphin, Sphinx, okay? So I think that's about 4. Inhale, 5. And then I think that's 8 for me, but I'm gonna take 2 or 3 breaths here just in a stable downward dog, pedaling my feet out, cupping my hands if they've patty caked flat on the mat. And then when you're ready, allow the knees to come down, kissing the mat, and come back towards your child's pose. Okay. How are we doing out there? I'm thinking the arms and legs and everything is quite awake now. Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. So we're gonna, before we flip our position, we've got one more in this prone shape. So we're gonna move through, and I'm gonna give you a whole bunch of options. And here's the deal, when you've run out of options or run out of patience or whatever, run out of breath, then I'm gonna show you our resting pose, okay? It's thread the needle, okay? So what we do is, it's actually revolved child's pose. So what we do is, you can take one hand up, it won't matter which one, inhale up, exhale, slide the arm through, so that's the threading the needle part, through between your knee and your hand, and come down onto the side of your shoulder and your head, and you can kind of rest and chill out there. And spend a couple of minutes there, or a minute there, and then same thing on the other side, okay? So that's where you're gonna end. And where we start is bird dog. Okay, so we start here, and take one leg back. Let's say I've started with left leg, really pointing the toes down, pointing what feels like the front of the left hip down, and you can stay there, okay? Or inhale, bring the knee forward towards your elbow, and then come back. Forward and back. See, I say bird dog, and now my dog is hovering around me. He's just behind the camera. Forward and back, and then as a shout out to the dog, let's go to fire hydrant pose so that we've got both hands grounded. Bring your knee out to the side, okay? Like you are peeing on a fire hydrant. Okay, or straighten the leg out. Lift the leg up. And then sweep it back. And hold it back there. Now here we're gonna play with a little balance, so make sure you've got your bearings, get really heavy and solid in your left hand, and then maybe lift the right up. And then perhaps elbow comes into knee. Remember, when you've had enough, we're all on the one side, so maybe it's your left arm that's gonna slide through in that threading the needle when you're ready to go there. Remember, it's your choice. Third one, and then come out, and then this time, hydrant, and this is tricky, maybe the arm, or maybe it gives you a nice counterbalance, comes out to the side. And then release. If you're ready, inhale, left arm rises. Exhale, sweep it through. Come down onto your shoulder, the side of your head, and breathe. If you know, I haven't cued any special variations of this, but if you like to wrap and reach for your opposite hip, or take your hands together, come forward, whatever floats your boat, that's totally cool. Just let your heart rate come down, let the breath regulate itself. And isn't it interesting that when we're in a pose that we're not working too hard, or it doesn't feel particularly challenging, that the mind can start to wander, as opposed to when we're moving in a more intense way, it's all of a sudden, it can, at least for me, it can be a lot easier to focus on that movement. All right, let's release out of that. Unspool your arm, come back out. Just a little shift from side to side. Okay. And then on the next inhale, right leg comes up. Square that hip. So I'm gonna really take my hip out and show you. Tendency will be to kind of turn the toes like 45 degrees like I'm showing there. Really turn the hip. Press back through the heel. Okay? That can be really tricky here. I'm like, there, I've placed my foot on the wall, so now I actually could stay here probably for like 10 minutes, and everyone would be like, whoa, what is going on? Don't trust the camera. Okay, so we're here, and then exhale, knee comes forward. Inhale, extend. Exhale. Big inhale. Exhale, curl. Inhale, extend, and then hydrant. And notice that the tendency there, now look, your hydrant might be here, right? Just a smaller hydrant, that's okay. Or it might be here, or it might be here. Where you get to is really less important than where you're feeling challenged, where you're finding it interesting. And we'll come on back. Whew. Oh, actually, my bad. Sorry, right leg comes up. Get light in the left hand. Left arm right comes forward. And then option on the exhale, knee and elbow. Inhale, extend. Exhale, curl. One more of those. And then as we unspool, option to go hydrant, to go balanced. Ooh, my hip is not liking that today. That's okay. And then come on down, hands and knees all on the mat. Sweep on an inhale, bring the right arm up, up, up. And then exhale, thread the needle. So we have pose and then counter pose. But it's also not unreasonable or unnatural, or doesn't mean that anything's wrong as you come out of this pose. If what I'm cueing as the efforting pose is actually very chill, like you're just like, oh, I could do this for a while, and maybe that stretch for whatever reason feels not like that. So Like, and my point being, it can be reversed. There isn't a manual. Every body is different. Okay. So we've gone through our bird dogs, Navasana. And how are we doing time-wise? Okay. We're good. We're good. So we're going to actually come down onto our posteriors. You might want to just shift some flesh out of the way so it feels like your sitting bones are actually making contact with the mat or the carpet or wherever you are. Okay. Bringing, oh, sorry, I said that I was gonna, that there would be choice. Okay. So I'm gonna give you, as a group, a series of somewhere between 2 and half a dozen different variations of boat pose, of Navasana, okay? But when you've had your fill, you can, I'm just gonna scooch forward here, come down onto your back, bring one ankle clear of the opposite knee, okay? Or it could be here, like with your leg down. So there's 1, there's 2, or again, you're threading through here, there's 3. This pose is sometimes called pigeon prep. So your knee would be moving forward, right? And you're using your opposite leg as a counterpoint, okay? So, and again, one leg and then the other. Cool? Okay, so let's get set up here for our boat. So, both feet flat on the floor, okay? And the knees might be apart a little bit, that's okay, or they might come in close together. Bring your hands in onto the back of the upper leg, so just behind the knee. And then we can really move slowly with balance here. Just lift one leg to begin and lean back a little bit. So we're not hunched, we're leaning. And then allow the foot to come down, and then try the other. And then come down. You might even notice the small little variations where you're carrying your weight when one foot goes up versus the other. And then really tip and bring both feet up just an inch or 2. Okay? Maybe let go of the hands. Now remember, you're going to thread the needle when you're ready, when you've had enough of this. So our hip flexors are probably working pretty hard here. Let's bring just one leg up, parallel with the mat, and then bring it down. Bring the other leg up, parallel with the mat, and bring it down. You probably have a sense of where I'm going here. Bring both legs up, parallel with the mat, and bring them down. And then bring both legs up as high as feels right without compromising your low back. And breathe, and breathe, and breathe. And then legs come down. Roll into your low back, but all your body is still up. You can extend, and we have half boat. Here's where the shaking can really happen. Yeah, you're telling me. 3, 2, 2, 2.5, 1, and relax. Come on down. Whew. Okay. And let's thread the needle. Okay. And if you haven't had enough of your Navasana, you want to come up and balance. I mean, there's lots of things that we can do. Like you could be up here and fart around with this stuff or any of the stuff that we did. Okay, so just because I say rest, that's also a choice. But like, I don't feel like that. I want to keep going. That's totally cool. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're paying attention, you're doing yoga. So it's all good. Okay, maybe... So finding your position, if it doesn't feel right, let me know. Lots and lots of variations for this one. If it's not uncomfortable to bring the leg up, like in other words, to have your hands around either the front of the shin or behind the leg, then that gives us a nice little spot we can go to really chill out here. Allow the left foot to come down. Okay, so I've still got my right leg up on top. Hands can come down to the side. And then just keep the legs in that figure 4 shape as they are, but roll your hips over to the left side of your mat and allow the right foot, the sole of the right foot, to come down. Got a little twist. And then work the right knee forward, which may create some engagement on the side, kind of back of the hip. And then trying to keep that, your bum, it's going to be in all likelihood off of the mat, and that's totally cool. But then maybe reaching up for some part of your leg or the knee and hugging it back while you're resisting the hip down and away. Okay, and then we'll come back up. We'll place the right foot down and inhale, bring the left foot up. Okay, left knee works its way forward. And breathe here for a few breaths. By the way, and I don't know if this will show up on camera, maybe if I do it on this wall. Sometimes I like to do this with a wall. So which wall would it be here? Nope. So it'd be we're on left foot crossing, so I brought my right foot up onto the wall itself. And basically, the closer to the wall that your hips get, the deeper the stretch is gonna get. But you've got, the wall is true, right? It's not gonna shift, it's not gonna try to avoid the stretch, it's just gonna provide immediate feedback. Here you are stretching things out. You can also see that everything is like lined up and square. And then, and here's a little bonus, you can take both hands onto the left thigh and just kind of actively rotate it out away from your midline. All right, and then, probably not if you're at the wall, I'm going to slide back into the middle of my mat. Foot comes down and roll over so left foot comes across the body. I find that that little roll into the twist is a nice release in the kind of side back. Okay, just kind of right in behind the hip. But again, just because that's how it lands in my body does not mean that it's going to land quite the same way. So really, the name of the game here for you, for all of us, is to be paying attention, learning our bodies, learning our breath. I know that sounds silly, you're like, but I've known my body for many years. Well, yeah, but, there's always more. Okay. How are we doing time-wise? I think, I had a whole thing on rolling, but I'll tell you what, we'll leave the rolling till next day. Because I have a feeling it's going to both energize us more than we need and just time-wise. Is that okay, everyone? We doing okay? Yeah. Okay. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to stay on our back, and we're going to do a bridge, okay? A couple of bridges. So here, the play will be, do you want to stay in a held bridge, or do you want to dynamically lift the hips up and drop them down? You know what? It's so brilliant because there's so much merit to both ways of practicing. So it's about, if you want the invigoration of up, down with the breath, cool. If you want to hold your bridge, or if you practice wheel or something else like that, by all means, okay? So, we're not so much interested in trying to tickle the backs of our heels as we are lining up our heels roughly underneath our knees, okay? Everyone's arms are a different length, so bear that in mind. Okay, and then let's make this first one all about rolling up super, super slowly. So backs of the arms come onto the mat a couple inches away from your side ribs. Fingers can kind of come up toward the ceiling. And then rather than lifting, and I'm going to show you here, I'm going to emphasize this. Now, if you're on your back, you might, and you want to know what I'm actually talking about, I'll do this twice so you can see, or you can just go by my verbal cue. The tendency here will be to lift the entire kind of from your sternum or from the back of, your mid-back down, all as one unit. Okay, so in other words, it would look something like this. And like a platform comes up, and then a platform comes down. Up and down. And that's cool. okay? But instead, what we're gonna try to do is this. Start with the tip of your tailbone, okay? And lift it just a little bit. And then go a little bit higher and a little bit higher. And now the bum is off of the mat and higher. And now the low back is raising, higher, 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 mid, higher, higher, and then lower, lower, lower. Segment by segment, vertebra by vertebra. It can be quite tricky. Talk about mindful movement, right? There's lift, all one unit, and then there's flow, like a snake. Okay? So I'm gonna cue ups and downs, okay? And we'll start with not quite as slow and exaggerated a roll, but rolling up, up, up. On the inhale, exhale, down. Up, roll. And down, exhale. You really have to stay tuned in. Last one, unless you want to keep going, roll up sequentially. Knees still magnetized together, so I'm not opening up too much here. And then roll down sequentially. Good. And then let's just change it up. Try to make it now. If you're loving that, stay with that. Or lift everything up as one unit, like a platform. Thrusting the hips up toward the ceiling. The points of your hips connecting to the ceiling. And then come down. Again, it doesn't have to be jarring, but it's not so individually focused. Up and down and up and down. And now the choice. You can either keep undulating in either variation we've worked with, or come up. I'm deciding to roll up. And then what I'm going to do is roll a little bit on my right side, tuck my left shoulder under, roll back onto my left, tuck my right under. Hands might come together and move down. Not turning the head here, looking straight up. And breathing. I'm not going to do anything truly evil like, say, lift a leg up or any of that stuff. Instead, let's unfurl the arms and slowly come back down. Ha. All right. So moving our way towards Shavasana, we're here on our backs anyway. But in order to get there, let's move into a twist. So left leg extends. So feel like you're pressing your left heel down towards the wall opposite you, like by the foot of your mat. Okay, so really, really straightening that leg out. And then inhale, hug the right knee in toward your belly or toward your chest. Then notice that that'll kind of lift the leg up, really kind of glue or magnetize that left leg toward the front of the room. And then let's release our right hand from the knee. It can come down for a bit of support. And there's a little scooch action here when we come onto the side of our hip. Okay, glue, if you can, the right shoulder down. Left leg can either be bent and the knee comes down, or extended. And you might even look over your right shoulder. And breathe. And see, I stopped talking there because it was tricky in this constricted position to both talk and twist and breathe. So try to relax into it. In fact, right now, whatever you're doing, can you try 10% less? Even and especially if that involves changing your body position a little bit. So I stopped straightening my leg. Good. And then let's come back into center. Square those hips up again to the ceiling. Press the right heel to the front wall of wherever you're practicing. Inhale. Hands can wrap the front of the left knee as you hug it up, up, up. Again, really driving that right heel forward. And then taking the hand, just the right hand onto the left knee. Left hand comes out to the side. Little scooch, little scooch. Ground that left shoulder. And we've got our revolve twist. And then in some way, let's go for a little bit less. So here's what I'm gonna do. This time, I'm gonna actually let my shoulder come up and the knee comes down. And that's called knowing my body. I know on this side in particular, I get a different kind of release in the back of my left hip. So you do you. Do whatever feels right. And be okay with just exploring. Like, the way we find what feels right is by feeling it all, by trying it out. Take it out for a spin. Okay, let's come back. Okay, and then just to release any residual tension we have there in the hips or the low back, take your feet as wide as the mat or in that vicinity. And then on your next exhale, let both knees drop to one side. And then inhale them up and exhale to the other side. And you could be doing this in like ultra slow motion, or you could be windshield wipering. All right. So final resting pose. I am gonna I can't get rid of all the lights, but I'm gonna get rid of the lights overhead, or at least dim them a bit, just so I'm not looking up into a light. All right. And then, where can you be? Give you 3 different options here for rest, okay? But rest is best wherever you feel restful. So, you can keep those feet wide and knees drop in together toward one another into constructive rest position. Option 2 is Shavasana. It's a corpse pose, tucking your shoulder blades in a little bit, letting the wrists and the ankles roll out. Option 3, I'm gonna have to watch my paint stuff here at the side of the wall, is to bring your hips up to the side of a wall. This is actually by design. This is where I wanted to end up today. And then scooch your legs up the wall. Wherever you are, if you're listening into what your body needs, you're in exactly the right position. Might notice, without changing anything about your experience, or at least not actively trying to do so, the change is going to happen. Notice where your attention is. Notice what you're aware of and what you're not aware of. Are you super focused? Are you completely dissociated? Or is your attention flowing, bouncing around a little bit slowly? All options are valid as long as we're being intentional about it. Whichever shape you happen to be in, let's begin by wiggling fingers and toes, rotating your wrists, your ankles. Whatever feels right as a way of coming out of this pose. If you've got your legs up the wall like me, you might want to scrub them down, like so that your heels are a little bit lower, and then just a little tip to the side, which is a nice out from either of our reclined positions. And then we'll press up. And then we'll close out the practice. I've taken hero pose, so I'm sitting on my heels, but again, you could be in so-called easy pose, you could be still lying, wherever floats your boat. Namaste.
Namaste.
Which, if I know some of you, if you've been following along, I don't say that very often, but these days, but I say peace in, because I think that's where it starts, and then you find the peace out, but, and for a whole bunch of reasons, I haven't been saying namaste, but, man, I just listened to a Dharma talk, being given by Joseph Goldstein. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Joseph Goldstein. He's a master meditation teacher, and he was talking just about, the light within me, salutes the light within you. And was it Joseph Goldstein or someone else? No, it was someone else, but it doesn't matter anyway. The point was that because I have been out of that habit myself for a while, it really resonated with me that, like, yeah, we're all different, we're all unique, and yet we're all connected. Like, we all have these similar experiences. So, namaste. And peace in and peace out. I'm just gonna stop this other video. Bye out there, interweb people.